Nobody knew that the quiet janitor mopping Terminal B had once defused bombs in Afghanistan. Nobody knew that his shaking hands weren't from age, but from the 47 explosive devices he'd disarmed during 3 tours of duty. And nobody knew that, when he spotted the suspicious bag by Gate 47, those same hands would steady with muscle memory that could save an entire terminal. What happened next would remind everyone that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear janitor's overalls and push cleaning carts, and sometimes they're the only thing standing between ordinary Tuesday afternoon and unthinkable tragedy. Welcome to Untold Heroes Stories. Before we continue this intense story, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us honor those who serve in the shadows. Miguel Santos had been invisible for so long, he'd almost forgotten what it felt like to be seen. For 5 years, he'd worked the morning shift at Denver International Airport, arriving at 6 a.m. to clean Terminal B before the day's chaos began. Travelers rushed past him without a glance, their minds focused on flights, meetings, and destinations. Security guards nodded politely but never really looked at him. Even his fellow maintenance workers treated him like part of the furniture, reliable, necessary, but ultimately forgettable. At 52, Miguel was exactly what people expected from a janitor: quiet, unassuming, and completely unremarkable. His uniform was always clean but worn, his cart was methodically organized, and his routine never varied. He spoke English with a slight accent that made people assume he was just another immigrant grateful for steady work. What they didn't know was that Miguel Santos had been one of the Army's most skilled explosive ordnance disposal specialists. What they couldn't see was that his careful, methodical approach to cleaning floors was the same precision that had once saved hundreds of lives in the mountains of Afghanistan. But that was another life. A life before the IED that ended his military career, before the PTSD that made him prefer solitude, before the tremor in his hands that reminded him daily of the 47 bombs he'd successfully defused and the one that nearly killed him. Now he was just Miguel the janitor, and that was exactly how he wanted it. Until November 15th, when his quiet life collided with his dangerous past. Tuesday morning started like every other day. Miguel clocked in at 5:47 a.m., 3 minutes before his shift officially began. He liked to be early. Old habits from the Army, where being late could get people killed. His cleaning cart was loaded the same way every day. Disinfectant spray in the front left compartment, paper towels in the front right, trash bags hanging from the left side, and his personal thermos of coffee secured in the back. Everything had its place. Everything served a purpose. "Morning, Miguel," called out Janet Williams, the shift supervisor. She was one of the few people who actually acknowledged his existence beyond work instructions. "Good morning, Miss Janet," Miguel replied, his voice soft but clear. "Terminal B is ready for cleaning." Janet smiled. "You're the most reliable employee we have. Never missed a day in 5 years." Miguel just nodded. Reliability was all he had left to offer. He began his routine at Gate 1 and worked methodically through the terminal. Each gate required the same process: empty trash bins, wipe down seats, mop the floor, check for any items left behind by passengers. The work was mindless, repetitive, and exactly what his damaged nerves needed. But old habits die hard. As Miguel cleaned, his eyes automatically scanned for anything out of place. Military training doesn't just disappear because you change careers. He noticed the businessman who left his briefcase unattended for too long. He spotted the nervous woman who kept checking her phone and looking around anxiously. He observed the maintenance worker who didn't belong to any crew Miguel recognized. Most of the time, these observations meant nothing. Airport anxiety was normal. People forgot things. New employees started regularly. But at 3:47 p.m., his training would save lives. Miguel was working near Gate 47 when he first noticed the black duffel bag. It was sitting against the wall, about 10 feet from the boarding area, positioned in a way that suggested someone had deliberately placed it there, rather than accidentally dropped it. In his 5 years at the airport, Miguel had seen thousands of forgotten bags. Usually, they contained clothes, electronics, or souvenirs. Usually, their owners came looking for them within minutes. Usually, they were harmless. This bag was different. Miguel couldn't explain exactly what triggered his instincts. Maybe it was the way the bag sat too perfectly upright, as if weighted from the bottom. Maybe it was the slight chemical smell that reminded him of something he'd encountered in Kandahar. Maybe it was the almost imperceptible ticking sound that most people would dismiss as background noise. Or maybe it was the fact that he'd watched 3 different passengers walk directly past the bag without claiming it, and no one had reported it to security. Miguel continued cleaning, but he kept the bag in his peripheral vision. He had learned in Afghanistan to trust his gut feelings, especially when something felt wrong. Too many soldiers had died, ignoring their instincts. 20 minutes passed. The bag didn't move. No one claimed it. Security walked past it twice without stopping. That's when Miguel made his decision. Miguel approached the bag slowly, using his cleaning as cover. To anyone watching, he was just another janitor doing his job. But his trained eyes were examining every detail of the suspicious luggage. The bag was new, too new for someone who was traveling. The zippers were closed, but not all the way, as if someone had been in a hurry. There were no identification tags, no airline stickers, no signs of normal travel wear. Most importantly, there was definitely a smell, faint but unmistakable to someone who had spent years around explosives. It was the metallic chemical scent of certain types of detonators. Miguel's hands began to shake, but not from age or nerves. They were shaking with recognition. He pretended to clean the area around the bag while using his peripheral vision to examine it more closely. From this angle, he could see that the bag was definitely weighted, sitting in a way that suggested heavy contents distributed evenly throughout. And there was definitely a ticking sound, soft, rhythmic, like a timer counting down. Miguel's military training kicked in fully. First rule of EOD, identify the threat. Second rule, secure the area. Third rule, notify command. But this wasn't Afghanistan. This was Denver International Airport on a busy Tuesday afternoon. There was no command to notify, no protocol that would take his word seriously. He was just a janitor who couldn't prove what he suspected. He needed to be sure. Miguel positioned his cleaning cart strategically, creating a barrier between the suspicious bag and the nearest passengers. Then he did something that could have gotten him fired. He carefully, quietly, opened his utility pocket and pulled out a small tool he'd carried for 20 years. It was a multi-purpose device that looked like a simple screwdriver to most people, but Miguel knew it could detect certain types of electronic signals commonly used in improvised explosive devices. Pretending to clean the outlet near the bag, Miguel discreetly ran the device along the duffel's edge. The small LED on the tool's handle flashed red 3 times. Positive detection, electronic timing device, active countdown. Miguel's blood ran cold. After 20 years, he could recognize the signature of a bomb, and this was definitely a bomb, a sophisticated one, based on the signals his detector was picking up. He estimated he was looking at 15 to 20 pounds of explosive material, enough to kill everyone in the immediate boarding area and potentially collapse part of the terminal structure. The timer indicated it was set to detonate, but he couldn't tell how much time was left without closer examination. Miguel had 2 choices: evacuate the area immediately and hope security would believe him, or use his training to try to disarm the device himself. The first option was logical and safe. The second option could save hundreds of lives if he was right, or get him arrested if he was wrong. Miguel chose option 3, both. Miguel calmly walked to the nearest security checkpoint, where Officer Patricia Davis was checking boarding passes. "Excuse me, Officer Davis," Miguel said quietly. "I need to speak with you about a security concern." Patricia looked at him with mild surprise. In 5 years, Miguel had never initiated a conversation with security. "What's the concern, Miguel?" "There's a suspicious bag at gate 47. It's been unattended for over 30 minutes, and I believe it may contain explosive materials." Patricia's expression shifted from surprise to skepticism. "Miguel, you're not trained to identify." "I served 3 tours in Afghanistan as an explosive ordnance disposal specialist," Miguel interrupted gently. "I've disarmed 47 explosive devices. I know what a bomb looks like, sounds like, and smells like." Patricia stared at him. Your bomb disposal?" "I was. And Officer Davis, we need to evacuate gate 47 immediately. That bag contains an active explosive device with a timer." The skepticism in Patricia's eyes was replaced by growing alarm. "How certain are you?" "Certain enough to stake my life on it, and certain enough that if I'm wrong, I'll turn in my badge and never work in security again." Patricia grabbed her radio. "Control. This is Davis at Checkpoint B. I need immediate supervisor response and potential evacuation protocol for Gate 47. We have a possible explosive device." The response was immediate. "Davis, confirm your last transmission." "Confirmed. Suspicious package, credible threat assessment, requesting immediate response." Within 90 seconds, the terminal's security chief, 3 TSA supervisors, and 2 police officers had arrived at Gate 47. Security Chief Tom Morrison looked at the black duffel bag, then at Miguel. "Mr. Santos, you're claiming this is an explosive device?" "Yes, sir." based on visual inspection, electronic detection, and 20 years of experience in bomb disposal. Morrison turned to his team. Standard protocol is to evacuate the terminal and call the bomb squad. That's a 2-hour process minimum. Sir, Miguel said quietly, if I'm reading the timer signature correctly, we don't have 2 hours. Morrison's face went pale. How long do we have? Miguel knelt beside the bag, using his detection tool more thoroughly. The LED patterns told him everything he needed to know. Based on the electronic signature, I estimate 45 minutes maximum, possibly less. Morrison made the fastest decision of his career. Everyone back. Clear gates 45 through 50. Mr. Santos, are you qualified to disarm this device? Miguel's hands stopped shaking for the first time in 5 years. Sir, I am. But I need everyone at least 100 feet away, and I need a communication device in case this goes wrong. Goes wrong how? If my hands slip, or if this device has anti-tampering measures I don't recognize, approximately 400 people are going to die. Morrison handed Miguel his radio. Whatever you need. Miguel looked at the bag one more time, then at the hundreds of travelers who had no idea their lives were in danger. Get everyone back. I'm going to work. Miguel's hands were steady now, steadier than they'd been in years. Muscle memory was taking over, 20 years of training flooding back as if he'd never left Afghanistan. First, he examined the bag's exterior for anti-tampering devices. Clean, no secondary triggers visible. Second, he used his detection tool to map the device's internal layout. The signature indicated a central timing mechanism connected to multiple charges distributed throughout the bag. Third, he carefully opened the bag's zipper, moving slowly enough to avoid triggering any motion sensors. What he found inside made his stomach turn. 12 pounds of military-grade plastic explosive, arranged around a sophisticated digital timer showing 31 minutes and counting down. This wasn't a homemade device. This was professional-level ordnance, the kind used by serious terrorists. The timer was connected to 4 separate detonators positioned throughout the explosive material. Cutting the wrong wire would trigger the backup systems and detonate the bomb immediately. Miguel had disarmed similar devices in Afghanistan, but never in an airport terminal surrounded by civilians. He keyed his radio. Control, this is Santos. Confirmed explosive device, professional construction, 30 minutes on the timer. I'm beginning disarmament procedures. Santos Bomb Squad ETA is 1 hour. Can you wait? Miguel looked at the timer. 29 minutes, 47 seconds. Negative, if I wait, people die. Miguel's 20 years of experience took over completely. He ignored the noise, the pressure, the hundreds of lives depending on his skill. In his mind, he was back in Afghanistan, focused solely on the device in front of him. First step, identify the primary trigger mechanism. The timer was the obvious target, but Miguel knew from experience that sophisticated devices often had backup triggers designed to catch inexperienced bomb techs. Second step, trace the wiring. Using a small mirror from his utility kit, Miguel mapped the connections between the timer, the detonators, and the explosive material. This device had 3 separate trigger systems: the primary timer, a motion sensor backup, and a pressure sensor designed to detonate if the bag was moved. Third step, disable the backup systems first. Miguel carefully located the motion sensor, a small device hidden in the bag's lining, and used his multi-tool to disconnect its power source. The timer read 23 minutes, 15 seconds. Fourth step, neutralize the pressure sensor. This was the most dangerous part. One wrong move, too much pressure, and the device would explode instantly. Miguel located the sensor, a small pad beneath the explosive material, and slowly, carefully, began the bypass procedure. His hands were completely steady now. 20 years of training, muscle memory, and absolute focus had taken over. 18 minutes, 32 seconds. Miguel had successfully disabled the backup triggers. Now came the hardest part, the primary timer. This wasn't a simple cut the red wire situation. The timer was connected to 4 separate detonators through a series of redundant circuits designed to prevent exactly what Miguel was trying to do. He had to disconnect all 4 circuits simultaneously, or the remaining circuits would trigger the explosion. 12 minutes, 8 seconds. Miguel positioned his tools carefully. He would need to cut 4 wires at exactly the same time, something that required both hands in perfect timing. He keyed his radio one final time. Control, this is Santos. If this doesn't work, tell my daughter in San Diego that I'm proud of her, and tell Janet Williams that she was right. I never missed a day. Santos, you're going to be fine. You've got this. Miguel looked at the timer. 8 minutes, 43 seconds. He positioned his wire cutters on all 4 circuits, took a deep breath, and began the final cut. But then he noticed something that made his blood freeze. There was a fifth wire he hadn't seen before, hidden beneath the main bundle, and it was connected to a backup detonator that would trigger if the main circuits were cut. Miguel had 30 seconds to decide. Cut the main wires and hope the fifth wire was a decoy, or try to trace the fifth wire and risk running out of time. 6 minutes, 15 seconds. Miguel made his choice. Instead of cutting the main wires, Miguel followed the fifth wire to its source. His instinct told him this was the real trigger. The device was designed to fool bomb technicians into cutting the obvious wires while missing the hidden one. The fifth wire led to a secondary timer, completely separate from the main display. This timer showed only 3 minutes, 22 seconds. Miguel had been working on the wrong timer. With less than 3 minutes left, Miguel redirected all his attention to the secondary device. This one was simpler, but more deadly. A basic timer with a single trigger wire connected directly to all 4 detonators. 2 minutes, 8 seconds. Miguel positioned his wire cutters on the trigger wire, but paused. In Afghanistan, he'd seen devices with backup triggers designed to detonate if the main trigger was cut. He needed to be absolutely certain this was the right wire. 1 minute, 34 seconds. Miguel used his detection tool one final time, scanning the entire device for any signals he'd missed. The tool showed only one active circuit, the wire in his cutters. 47 seconds. Miguel closed his eyes, said a prayer in Spanish, and cut the wire. The timer stopped at 000023. For a moment, the terminal was completely silent. Then Miguel's radio crackled to life. "Santos, what's your status?" Miguel looked at the disabled device, then at his hands, which were shaking again. "Control. Device is neutralized. Bomb is disarmed. Terminal is safe." The cheering could be heard 3 gates away. Within minutes, Gate 47 was surrounded by FBI agents, bomb squad technicians, and enough law enforcement to fill a small stadium. Miguel found himself being debriefed by federal agents who couldn't believe that a janitor had just disarmed a sophisticated terrorist weapon. "Mr. Santos," said Agent Jennifer Martinez, "can you walk us through your military background?" Miguel told them about his 3 tours in Afghanistan, his 47 successful bomb disposals, the IED that ended his career, and the PTSD that made him prefer cleaning floors to dealing with people. "Why didn't this show up in your background check for the airport job?" Agent Martinez asked. "Because I didn't list my military service," Miguel replied. "I wanted to be invisible. I wanted people to see a janitor, not a soldier." Agent Martinez stared at him. "Mr. Santos, do you understand that you just prevented one of the largest terrorist attacks on American soil since 9/11? Miguel looked around at the hundreds of travelers who were slowly being allowed back into the terminal, most of them completely unaware of how close they'd come to dying. "I just did my job," he said quietly. "Your job is cleaning floors." Miguel smiled for the first time in years. "Today, my job was saving lives." The FBI's investigation revealed that the bomb had been planted by a terrorist cell, planning to target American transportation infrastructure. The device contained enough explosive material to kill everyone in gates 45 to 50 and potentially cause structural damage that could have collapsed part of the terminal. The terrorists had chosen Denver International because of its high traffic volume and symbolic importance as a major American transportation hub. They had planned the attack for maximum psychological impact, timing it for a busy Tuesday afternoon when the terminal would be crowded with business travelers and families. Miguel's quick action and expert disarmament had saved an estimated 400 lives. The device itself was military-grade ordnance, far more sophisticated than typical terrorist weapons. It had been designed by someone with professional bomb-making experience, possibly military training. Most importantly, the bomb had been designed to fool standard bomb disposal protocols. If Miguel hadn't recognized the decoy timer and found the hidden trigger wire, even professional bomb technicians might have accidentally detonated the device while trying to disarm it. "Mr. Santos," Agent Martinez told him during his final debriefing, "your experience in Afghanistan didn't just help you disarm this bomb. It's the only reason anyone survived today." Word of Miguel's heroism spread quickly through the airport and beyond. The quiet janitor, who had been invisible for 5 years, was suddenly the most famous person in Denver. Airport employees who had barely acknowledged his existence for half a decade were lining up to shake his hand. Passengers whose lives he'd saved were sending thank you letters. News crews were requesting interviews he politely declined. But the most meaningful change came from an unexpected source, Janet Williams, his supervisor. "Miguel," she said the day after the incident, "I owe you an apology." "For what, Miss Janet?" "For 5 years, I saw you as just a reliable employee. I never bothered to ask about your background, your family, your dreams. I never saw you as a person. Miguel nodded. That's what I wanted. I was hiding. But why? You're a hero. You've always been a hero. Miguel considered this. In Afghanistan, I was Sergeant Santos, bomb disposal expert. Here, I wanted to be just Miguel, janitor. I thought it would be easier. Was it easier? Miguel looked around the terminal, where travelers were moving safely through gates that might have been destroyed yesterday. No, he said finally. Hiding from who you are doesn't make the nightmares go away. It just makes you invisible to the people who might need you. The airport offered Miguel a promotion to head of security, a position that would triple his salary and give him the recognition he'd earned. Miguel politely declined. I like cleaning floors, he told them. It gives me peace, but I don't want to be invisible anymore. Instead, Miguel accepted a part-time position training airport security personnel in threat recognition and bomb disposal basics. He would continue his cleaning duties, but would also share his expertise with the people responsible for keeping travelers safe. You can teach them what to look for, Agent Martinez suggested, and maybe prevent the next attack before it happens. Miguel agreed, but with one condition. He would continue to mop floors every morning before his training duties began. Why? Janet Williams asked. Because the floors still need to be cleaned, Miguel replied, and because I've learned that every job matters, especially the ones nobody notices. Today, Miguel Santos continues to work at Denver International Airport. He still arrives at 5:47 a.m., still loads his cleaning cart the same way, and still begins each day by mopping Terminal B. But he's no longer invisible. Airport employees greet him by name. Travelers occasionally recognize him from news coverage, and security personnel seek his advice on potential threats. Most importantly, Miguel has stopped hiding from his past. He speaks proudly of his military service, shares his expertise with new security recruits, and has become a mentor to other veterans struggling to find their place in civilian life. The bomb he disarmed turned out to be part of a larger terrorist plot that was dismantled thanks to evidence found in the device. His actions didn't just save 400 lives that day. They prevented future attacks that could have killed thousands. Miguel's story reminds us that heroes walk among us every day, often in the most ordinary disguises. They mop our floors, check our tickets, and serve our coffee. They carry their service quietly, not because they're ashamed of it, but because true courage doesn't need to be announced. The next time you pass by someone in a service uniform, remember Miguel Santos. Remember that the person emptying your trash or cleaning your office might have once saved lives in distant wars. Remember that everyone has a story, and some of the most important stories belong to the people we see but never really notice. Look closer. Listen more carefully. Show respect not because of what someone does for a living, but because of what they might have done when their country needed them most. Have you ever discovered that someone you considered ordinary had an extraordinary past? Have you ever misjudged someone based on their job or appearance? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this story moved you, subscribe to Untold Heroes Stories for more narratives about the quiet heroes who continue to serve and protect us, even when we don't realize they're there. Because the most powerful stories don't announce themselves. They wait patiently in the background, cleaning floors and keeping watch, ready to step forward when the moment demands everything they have to give. Until next time, remember that heroism doesn't require a uniform. Sometimes it just requires paying attention, trusting your instincts, and having the courage to act when no one else will.